In this video, I will give you 4 reasons why big breakthroughs, revelations often don't lead to lasting change in the real life, and 4 ways how we can better integrate those bigger breakthroughs and how to make the change that we actually want to see in our daily lives. So for the past 7 years, actually even a bit more now, I've been working closely with clients, helping them make a change in their life. Whether that's an inner shift of letting go control mechanisms, fear, inner sabotage, the controlling behaviors, or that's shifting to a more healthy lifestyle. And I've noticed key things why some people don't make the change. And that's why I think it's important to keep these in mind whenever you are going to a retreat, starting therapy. Because now what I mostly do is integrated therapy, where I integrated a lot of methodologies and I can see what works best for people. So hopefully in this video you will find some answers and navigation, a tool, a way how to better shift your life to a more beneficial one for your well-being. So the first reason why your life doesn't actually change after you come back, after big revelations, after a planned ceremony or a retreat or a festival, and you're thinking, coming back, my life is never going to be the same. I've realized things about myself and the way I am, and I feel so changed. But when you come back, a few weeks later, you notice that you're in the same patterns that you were before. And the reason for this, what I often find in my own life and in my clients, is that in these kind of retreats, ceremonies, it's very useful to go there. I'm certainly not against it. I love them, to really immerse yourself into such experiences, to get to know yourself better on a deeper level, because on a daily life, you're not able to go so deep because it's not consistent and the environment is not conducive for it. So after you've experienced all of that, the reason why we actually don't often contain those and transmute them in our lives, the first reason is our nervous system doesn't tolerate these big expansions, because it just, after expanding so big, it will just contract. I learned this when I was studying somatic experiencing and polyvagal theory, really noticing how our nervous system works, that it's much better to expand little by little. But on that, I will talk about more in the second half of the video, where I will present the ways how to better integrate. But the first reason why is that if you go from kind of contraction into big expansion after, a retreat or a ceremony, normally what follows is a big contraction again, because it's just not safe to go from this to this. So keep that in mind. Second reason is familiarity. We are trained, our nervous system is trained, our whole evolutionary body principles are trained to crave familiarity, because familiarity means safety in a way, that we know how things are going, we adapt it to our tribe, to certain behaviors, how to survive, and we just used to follow these, safety mechanisms throughout our whole lives, and it wouldn't be so long, so we would just, the goal was to survive and to reproduce. So now, even though it's painful, the familiar is painful, our body, our nervous system still chooses the painful familiar than the unfamiliar expansion, because it's just too far off. And the third reason is that our protective parts, our protective mechanisms, are not convinced that it's safe or sustainable for us to continue this new way of life. And that comes back from the internal family systems, therapeutic modality that I dearly love and I use a lot with my clients in my own life, because it just provides such a beautiful understanding and inner relationship with myself. More on that in the second half of the video. But really the reason is that those parts that learn to control and manage our life a certain way, not allowing people in, or acting in destructive ways, self-sabotaging, inner critic, it's because they are not trusting that we, as the inner leader of our system, can lead the system in a different way, because when we were little, we couldn't. And so they learned that, okay, a way to survive, maybe the shame that I'm experiencing in this life, is to put on an inner critic, strong protection, and then the persona I want to emulate, and it's a never-ending cycle with the shame and the critic. And a fourth reason, even though I could go on and on, is the environment. It's very easy to be a new person when you're in this beautiful retreat or a festival and all the people have gone through their own cathartic experiences and big breakthroughs and are all connected and it's safe. But when we come back to our daily life and we meet with people that known us for many years and they know how we acted, and they kind of are expecting of us the same kind of attitude and to fill the same kind of role in our family system, it's very hard to change. And also it triggers us a lot. There's a saying, if you think you're enlightened, go visit your parents. At some point I did think I'm enlightened. I am already, I understood what this life is about and I have no hard feelings anymore. And then I met my mom and I was like, oh, okay. Humbling experience to say the least. So now let's go on into the second half of the video, is how then to navigate these breakthroughs and how to integrate the change that you've experienced. Coming back to the first and second reason why we can't make the change is the nervous system and the familiarity. So how do we overcome that is, instead of those big massive shifts, it's the pendulation. Maybe we expand a little bit and contract, expand a little bit more and then contract. And that's how we widen our container and how we make it more familiar and more safe for us to be in a more expanded state. And you might be thinking, what am I talking about? So let's take the control. I work with a lot of women who come to me and say, Elena, I really want to come back to my femininity and let go of control. I just feel like a control freak and I just have to micromanage everything. I just feel so unsafe. And so taking this kind of pattern, if they were to go to some, femininity retreat and they come back and they're all flowing and they meet their husband who's also so relaxed, and then she kind of takes back on that somebody needs to control and plan everything, and then she's like, I can't change. Coming from this to this. But what she can do is, okay, I came back home after a retreat or after a realization. You don't have to only use this after you come back from a retreat or something. But if you want to work on a specific pattern or, an inner safety mechanism that is bothering you and it's keeping you small and is limiting you, the best way to go about it is to say, okay, where can I practice letting go of this mechanism that would feel safe? So maybe with the control pattern, okay, I will let my husband to plan a getaway, I will not control it. I will not micromanage anything. Like whatever will be, I just release the control of it. Or in a work environment, okay, I trust that my colleague will take on his role, and I don't have to keep bugging them. Or in any way that you think, okay, this would be a safe space for me, a zone to let go of this mechanism and explore if it's safe. Because what our nervous system needs is those disconfirming experiences. Because when I was a child, I had to grow myself up. I didn't really have caregivers to take care of me. I had to do everything myself. So I learned to be very self-sufficient and to take on too much responsibility also for others. So for me, it's about, okay, where can I let go of that responsibility and where it would be safe to explore that, in what kind of relationships, in what kind of situations. So I kind of pre-plan it, and I intentionally go and let that control mechanism go in that situation and allow myself to receive, my nervous system to receive that it's safe. He took care of everything. I didn't need to worry about it. And even if it wasn't perfectly, as I wished it would be, as a planned out thing, it was okay. Or, if it's a fear of intimacy, it's taking small steps, seeing, okay, if I'm really afraid to meet someone without my mask, how can I choose those people where I can create a safe space to learn how to be vulnerable? Maybe go to specific workshops or, experiences where that safe space is created so that our nervous system could receive that, oh, it's safe. And it's about looking for those disconfirming experiences throughout my day, seeing where I didn't need to control things, I didn't need to take over the responsibility, where other people are completely capable of making things happen, where it's safe to connect. And it's about keeping that awareness. It doesn't have to be a hard job to do the integration, but it's pleasurable. It's exploration and it's creativity as well, to see where can I notice that it's safe, where that experience is safe, to look for those disconfirmations. Second step, second way would be to meet with those parts of ourselves that are afraid, in my example, the part I had to control everything and micromanage, is to get to know that part, understand how it functions, what it's afraid of. In an example of intimacy, being afraid of the intimacy is to get to know that part that was hurt by previous experiences where it learned that it's not safe to connect. And then once we build a connection with those parts of ourselves, that comes back to internal family system, then we can create a safe, healthy attachment with ourselves. Because attachment theory talks about how we have to find that safe attachment figure, and only then we can repattern our attachment style. But actually, we can become those safe attachment figures to ourselves, to become the inner loving parent, the inner reparenting with full love. Because often when we grow up in a shaming environment, then we learn this kind of attitude towards ourselves. So we internalize the shame and we start shaming ourselves, even though that's not how we would talk to our kids. So it's about noticing how I talk with myself, with those parts of myself that are afraid, and seeing how I would talk to my child, how I would talk to someone I dearly love, and talking like that with my parts. And what that does is building not only the strong self, but also the trust of my parts, that they can trust me to go in a relationship, to let go of micromanaging and taking over responsibility, because I can handle the consequences that come if something bad happens, and that I can make the decisions that would benefit me and those parts, that I can set boundaries, that I can communicate, and that only comes when I am in my true self. This step is very important, not to bulldoze over those protective mechanisms. Because before, what I did when I met with my inner fierce critic, I would be fighting it. I would be silencing it and shutting it down and criticizing it for criticizing me, and it would just get me in a loop. But when I learned the internal family systems way of navigating my life, it became so much easier, because my inner critic became my friend, because we don't have to be in a fight, as I realized that the inner critic was making me safe and survive, and just the internalized criticism that I received from the environment, so I could survive and, striving to be good enough somehow. And now I learned that this mechanism really served me, and it doesn't serve me anymore. And I was able to build the trust that that part could trust me to take over the leadership and doesn't have to take over me anymore. I know that's quite a complex topic, and I can go in that in a long video. But if you're interested in internal family systems, I highly, highly suggest you go dive into the rabbit hole, because it changed my life and it's changing my clients' lives. Seeing how when they start applying this model in their life, it just becomes so much nicer to live. Yeah, so going further is the third way, and that is creating daily rituals. So after coming back from a retreat, ceremony, it's very easy to, for a while, still keep on the practices that we did there, or still keep the inner awareness. But after a while, it disappears. And with that disappears the new felt sense of the new me that I came back. And I've experienced it recently, that's why I'm making this video, because I came back from a festival and I felt like the new version of me, and I felt a bit overwhelmed even how to live this life now with that I kind of felt that I transformed core patterns. I realized even deeper, always new layers coming up about the core ways how I've been functioning and still seeking things in my life. And so coming back from that, I was just overwhelmed of how do I lead my life now that I'm also different. and that's why it's important to have the pendulation, what I mentioned in the first step, really getting to know those parts in the second step. And the third step is finding daily rituals of how I can integrate the change. So what I've been doing after I came back from the festival, integrating those parts, those breakthroughs that I've had in daily small actions. And for me, one of those breakthroughs was about intimacy and vulnerability. And what I did is, when I'm connecting with people, just checking in. How's that part doing? How's that protective mechanism that's been so afraid to connect vulnerably and truly with people, in a fear of being judged and that I can't really trust people based on my previous life experiences, and my nervous system learned that. So it's always that coming back to my body, noticing where is the tension, how's my nervous system, how are those parts happening. So that's a lot about self-awareness, but also to keep the connection going is maybe in the shower, embodying this, new you by imagining how the water is flowing and filling you with the qualities that you want to embody, or a journal practice, meditation, maybe even, your first cup of coffee in the morning, or matcha or cacao, that you can make this as a ritual to connect with the way you want to make the change in your life, to set that intention, to just remind yourself. It can be very small, but just keeping that on top of your mind can really help to integrate that in your life. And the last one, the fourth way of how we can better integrate the big experiences and make the shift in our life is the environment. When you're making the change, you have to be very relentless. I don't know if that's the word. You have to be serious about the environment that you are creating around yourself. And I know that's not always possible, because you might live with people that you can't, just suddenly move out. But that's either creating space for yourself, setting firmer boundaries, because it's very easy to snap back at the old ways of functioning, especially when the people around you aren't supportive of the inner work that you're doing, and they don't understand when you communicate with them that I really want to, develop my boundary setting or letting go of control. And for me, it's very important that you would support me in this change, and these are the ways how you can support me. And if you have people around you that are open to that kind of conversation, that is very important to have, that they would understand the kind of person, the kind of protective mechanisms and layers and new ways of functioning you want to embody and allow, for them to be able to support you and to know your soft spots, because it's very vulnerable to act against the way you learned is safe. Because if I learned that it's not safe to trust people and to connect fully and show my vulnerability, then it's going to be very tender when I do. And so I need to pick people that I can have that kind of experience. It's kind of coming back to the first way of finding ways to look for disconfirming experiences. But the environment is much bigger. It's also where you're going. So just being mindful about what kind of environment you're exposing yourself to in the first, coming weeks after an integration, or when you're wanting to make a change. Because there are countless numbers of studies where when people want to start a new, habit, let's stick to exercising for the sake of the simplicity, people who have friends who exercise, it's much more likely to stick to it. So the same happens to our inner world, which is much more subtle, so it's much harder to quantify. But look for people who are living the way you want to. Look for groups, additional supportive networks, or people like therapists, coaches, or mentors. Nowadays in this online life where we're so connected, it's much easier to find people that we resonate with, and we can find that safe environment for growth. So I really encourage you to mindfully and with awareness choose where you can create that kind of growth environment for yourself. So again, just to recap, nervous system doesn't tolerate big expansions because it contracts again. So taking small pendulations of the expansion to get those disconfirming experiences. Then is our body, our whole nervous system is very tied to familiarity. So with that, we're looking for small ways how we can make the new experience, the new integration, the new way of life more familiar, and that making our identity, that this is just who I am now, this is my life now, making it familiar. Then are our protective parts, and finding the relationship with the hurtful parts, the protective parts, getting to know them and finding that safe attachment within, and really developing our true self, our center from which we can lead and navigate life and hold those other parts, like inner parenting. Another way was daily rituals, is to keep that connection within and the intention going, to keep it on top of mind, on top of your attention, and so that it could flourish and really integrate in your life. And lastly was the environment, mindfully choosing what kind of environment and people and circumstances and events you are exposing yourself to. I hope you found this helpful in some way. I would really appreciate if you could share what you take away, what was new, maybe something I didn't mention. And if you would like to connect or work with me personally, feel free to reach out. All the links are in the description. And I hope to see you in the next video.